G'day, Professor Joseph Drew. This video is really important because context is everything. People get confused about our tax systems in Australia and the relative tax they pay because of the way they're designed. And it's really important now that our communities understand the real situation. So I'm talking about taxes here, and as everyone knows, we get levied taxes by the federal government, mainly income taxes, but there's other taxes in there, such as fuel excise. It's about 50 cents every litre you buy of fuel. We get levied taxes by the federal government on behalf of the state government. The GST is your biggest one. State governments levy taxes such as stamp duty. If you buy a new house, you find out all about stamp duty. And what I'm trying to get you to do is understand the relative severity of those taxes compared to what you receive, and also understand how much these other taxes have been going up. And these other taxes are taxes you don't notice. So let's first look at federal income taxes. Most people don't notice the federal income tax. Why? Because it gets taken out of your pay every fortnight. The only time you sort of notice it is after June 30 when you put your tax return in. And in the past, you've been getting these offsets, which means most people were getting money back. And they were overjoyed that they were getting money back and forgetting about the fact that they already paid $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 in tax. People focus on what they get rather than what they've already paid. Now, according to the OECD, this story is from the ABC, our federal taxes in Australia went up by more than any other OECD country in recent years. Why does that happen? Because of the cutting of the tax rebate that I talked about previously, but more importantly because of bracket creep. I think most people realise that as you earn more, not only do you get to pay more tax, which you would have done anyway as a percentage of income, but the tax rates increase quite remarkably. If you're in the top tax rate, you know all about it. It's about 45 cents on the dollar that you're paying on that last portion of your income. Now, what happens in an inflationary environment? Well, incomes usually go up to try to keep pace with increases in inflation, CPI. That's your base position for any union that wants to keep their members, is the pay increase we get has to at least be CPI. Now, bargaining power has been weak, and that hasn't been happening, but your pay has been going up. What does that mean to the federal government? It means just if your pay just goes up, they get more federal income taxes, don't they? If all the pay went up and we didn't have progressive taxation, all the pays went up by 5%, the federal government will get roughly 5% more in income taxes. But in addition to that, they get a special bonus because as your pay goes up, you can move up into those higher tax bands. So instead of paying 22 cents on the dollar, you're now paying 45 cents on the dollar or some such thing. So they get an extra bonus on top of that. So reality is your federal taxes went up more than any other country in the OECD in recent years. Were you complaining about your federal taxes? Because reality is it was a massive increase, 7.6%, according to that story. Now, the next major class of taxes are the GST. The federal government collects it, the 10% that goes on just about everything. Federal government collects it, but it's distributed to states on the basis of horizontal fiscal equalisation. The thing that should be happening with local government grants that isn't happening in most states. Now, this is straight from the ATO website, so I guess we can believe them. You can see how much the GST has been going up. In an inflationary environment, all the stuff you're buying at Woolies or Coles or Aldi or wherever you shop has gone up significantly. The GST is a 10% tax applied on top of it, so your GST has gone up. And you can read that top part of the story. Last year, it went up 10.5%, according to the ATO. They were actually expecting another 1.1 billion on top of that, which would have been absolutely massive as a percentage. And this is the interesting thing. For other tiers of government, inflation's not a bad thing. They might huff and puff in the media, but reality, economics, reality, and arithmetic is this. When there's inflation, the real value of state and federal government debt goes down, the real value, because the value is reduced by inflation. Okay, the nominal value doesn't go down, the real value goes down. So their debt goes down, And their tax receipts for things like GST and income tax go up remarkably, faster than inflation. Now, once again, did you complain about this 10.5% increase to inflation? Did you go to the checkout lady and jump up and down because your taxes went up 10.5%? Probably not. Most people don't even notice it. Most people don't reflect on the fact that their income taxes and their GST are far higher than their local government taxes. So in my case, my local government taxes are about $1,000 a year. My income tax last year, I did well in the share market. I got absolutely clobbered, 120,000. And my GST is typically about 4,000 a year. Local government tax, no one likes paying it. We just got a big increase in my local government area of 30-odd%. I actually support the increase because we weren't sustainable. I don't support the fact that they didn't follow the rules, and for some reason IPART approved it. But I supported the increase because local government needed the money. That's just a fact. But for me, that's way down the list, the lowest problem that I have. And for people in the bush, the reality is usually, particularly for wage earners, your local government tax, which we call rates in Australia, which is a really bad name for it because it is a local government tax, is by far and away the least of your problems. The difference is you notice it because you get sent a bill every quarter. You don't notice the income tax because it's taken out before you even see it. When you get a stage 3 tax cut, you're supposed to feel excited and thankful because they're giving you back some of the extra money they've been reaping because of inflation, the tax increases that most people don't know anything about. Your GST is your next biggest tax impost. Now that money goes to the federal government and it goes to the state government. Your local government tax is the least of your problems, but what do you use most? Local government services. In Moomba here, the state government's only barely represented in a tiny little school we have. The federal government's only barely represented in the tiny bit of the national highway that goes through Moomba. Other than that, I get nothing off them. What I'm mostly using, what I'm mostly getting, is local government goods and services, and that's my smallest tax. That's just a fact for wage earners. It might be different if you're on welfare because you're getting pensions or whatever, but for a wage earner, you're getting the biggest bang from the buck on your rates. So in many states, in Victoria and New South Wales, if you want to put your rates up, you've got to go through a process that becomes even more public. You've got to tell the community we're putting your rates up 30%, which is misleading because it's compounded if it's several years, and we've got to include an assumed rate peg in that number. So it's quite misleading the way it's presented, but that's the rules of most states. And rates are something people notice because the bill turns up every quarter, unlike the federal government taxes and the GST where it's taken out and you don't even realise it's happened. But state governments and federal governments, as I said, in a high inflationary environment, real value of their debt goes down, tax receipts go up. It's not such a bad thing. Local governments, their costs are going up, but their rates aren't going up. They're fixed by a rate cap, usually. The real value of the rates is actually going down. So I've got videos about real nominal rates. If you want to look that up, please do so. And they're in a real squeeze. They're in a really difficult position. This graph here is year on year changes to costs as measured by the rate cap, which is the blue line. We have another measurement, PPI, so CPI, which is the orange line. That's the change in the basket of household goods and services. It has nothing to do with local government. So in the ABS, we have about 7% weighted for tobacco and alcohol. Local government doesn't buy that. 4% weighted for school fees. Local government doesn't pay school fees. 18% or so weighted for groceries. Local government doesn't pay groceries. So it's completely irrelevant, but the higher tier bodies that are setting rate caps use CPI, even though they know it's wrong. We have PPI, which is increase in costs at the factory gate by businesses, but that can be misleading because service providers, their costs have actually been going down, not up because of AI and all those sorts of things. And then you have PPI roads. That's the increase in cost of building the roads, and that's probably the most relevant, the yellow line, because that's what local government spends most of the money on. Now, if you look at this graph over almost 20 years, what do you see? Mostly the yellow lines way, way higher than the blue lines. So what that means is that the rate caps haven't been keeping up with the actual increase in costs that local governments are facing. And that's why they get into problems and then hit you up with a huge tax increase later on. It's just reality. If they're not going to be given enough money to keep up with the increase in costs, eventually they're going to have to they'll become unsustainable and they're going to hit you up for a huge increase to your rates. That's just reality. It's how the arithmetic works, whether we like it or not. And this graph's quite interesting. It's the year-on-year change in unit costs. And as you can see, for rural councils, they're astronomical, way over 16%. Did your rates go up 16%? Because if they didn't, your council in real terms hasn't had enough extra money to keep up with their costs. Certainly the intergovernmental grants didn't go up by that much, and your fees and charges usually didn't go up that much. So now you understand, if your council's going to you asking for a big rate increase, why they're doing it. Look, I hope this video is helpful. I'm an academic, I'm a truth teller. Whether we like it or not, these are facts. Whether we all disagree, agree, whatever, they'll still be facts. And I think we need to get the facts back into the conversation and start dealing with facts and realizing the bang for the buck we get on local government taxes compared to state and federal government taxes, realize all these hidden or noticed taxes, and realize that state and federal governments haven't been doing too bad out of inflation at all, but the local governments have been getting absolutely clobbered. Look, if you like this video, send it round, use it in your council, put it up on your website. I don't care, I'm here to help. That's what it's all about. Make sure you subscribe though, we're almost at the 500 magic figure. Thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.